Hi again, folks. It's been quite some time since I last did a video on this channel, and yeah, it's been some time, but so much has gone on since the last time I spoke with you guys, or since I was last there with you. And of course, I normally do these videos at home, but I'm doing this one here from the car today. In a beautiful South Florida day, as I'm looking outside, just blue skies, a couple of white strips of clouds in the sky, but that's about it. But here I am again to do a video. Been meaning to do one for quite some time, but like I said before, just so many things that went on over the past few months. Clearly, I'm not in Madeira, which is something that we have been planning on or wanted to do. But we took some setbacks, unfortunately, some financial setbacks. My wife losing, she had two jobs, two full-time jobs actually, except that one of them, it's a piece of cake, so, and has a lot of flexibility, which allowed her to do a second job. So that job was with a contract, so the contract eventually came to an end. It was up in the air for quite some time, did not really know. Then at the last minute, they just pulled the string on it, with, I guess you can say with 2 weeks left, or 3 weeks left in the contract. They looked like they were going to extend it, then they decided at the last minute they were not going to. So that sort of hurt things there. Me, on the other hand, I started a new job in late November, early December, somewhere around there. Started a new job, so of course, that I had to go learn the whole process, which took a lot of time away from me, because prior I worked from home, so that's why I was able to do those videos, and it was a little bit easier for me to do them. But now I had to focus on a new job, focus on learning that job, focus on learning a whole lot of things, a lot of training, and so forth. So I just could not get around to doing these videos like I wanted to. But of course, with all those changes that took place, and of course there was also some financial setbacks that happened in between, and in order to make it to Portugal, in order to make it just about anywhere, you've got to have the finances, you've got to have that bank account, you've got to have different things in place in order to make that move. So that sort of set us back a bit, so here we are. But it has also given us some time to reflect. And when we first decided we wanted to move to Madeira, Portugal in general, or Madeira specifically, I should say, when we decided we wanted to move there, we had just come back from the island, believe it or not, exactly about a year ago, actually. We were there exactly a year ago, because this was our anniversary week. So we were there a year ago, and we came back. And of course, we came back with the excitement of the newness of something new, something different. And it's one of those things in human nature. Wow, I went to this place, it was great, I want to move there. Human beings, we can be that way. But I was very self-aware that's what we were feeling. And I said, maybe 6 months from now, maybe once you get back into life, a year from now, once life starts happening back where we are, that newness, that excitement would fade. It would just go away, and eventually it would be like, okay, yeah, we wanted to go, we didn't make the move right away, so it's worn off now. And yeah, whether we go or not, it's no big deal. That hasn't happened. Every now and again, my wife and I sit down and we're like, hey, still want to go to Madeira. We still want to get over there. We still want to go there. Every now and again, more or less like I pinch her. Still want to do this? And she's like, still want to do this. And as long as she still wants to do this, I definitely want to do this. And the reason why I'm saying that, my wife and I are different in this regard. I am a rather patient person. My wife, on the other hand, isn't. And her impatience a lot of times triggers the anxiety that she may have, or her anxiety triggers her impatience, one way or the other. I really don't know. I tend to see things coming from a mile. She tends to be a little bit more surprised by certain things, and it could do that. So I'm always worried about, is she on board with me still? You know, she doesn't have to worry if I'm on board. I'm ready to go. If I had the resources right now, that money that Portugal requires to have in a bank account, and some excess money left over, I would be out of here, I want to say, within the next few months. I would be gone. I would have everything that Portugal needs, and I'm out of here. But she, on the other hand, I'm always kind of like worrying because of this. Now, as excited as I am about still going to Madeira, still going to Portugal, I am not naive to know, and as I said before, because I pay attention to human nature. I am a human, and I tend to notice what we're capable of, what we fall for, and so forth. So again, new place, you feel excited, you feel a certain way, and you just want to go, and you may not consider a lot of things that are there that you should consider before you make this move. Well, when I talk about impatience and patience, my wife and I, as you guys know by now, we come from the Caribbean. I come from the island of St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and she comes from Guyana. Living in the Caribbean, you have to deal with quite a bit of things that may not be as convenient as living here in the United States. For instance, in both Guyana and the Virgin Islands, we deal with power outages frequently. In today's world, if we were working from home in any one of those places, the power is always going off. There goes your internet, you know. So that would be a big problem. Me, on the other hand, I'm more like, okay, well, the internet went off. I'm going to go to the beach. I'll find something to do. My wife will kind of like just get frustrated with the process, power went off and whatever, That's more or less how she would be. I would be more or less kind of like, oh God, here we go with this thing again, but I just won't sweat it after a while. In Portugal, I'm not saying we have to worry about things like that, but I'm just saying these are the type of things we have to worry about over there. The other thing is, I grew up in a rural part of, not St. Thomas, that's where I was born, but I was raised on the island of St. Kitts. Now we're talking about years ago, but I was raised there. And I was raised in a rural part of St. Kitts that, believe it or not, after all these years, still has such an influence on me. Meaning, I grew up without electricity for those first few years of my life. I grew up in a wooden home. We didn't have any indoor plumbing. We had to go get our water from the well or up the street at a pipe or something like that, Now, I've long passed that, but it's still a part of me that if I had to go somewhere, if I had to go live in rural Portugal where I had to do something like that, it won't bother me. It would be something I would be looking forward to. That simplicity that has long gone with the world that I once remembered. More for this complex world that I currently live in right now. But it would not bother me. That's basically what I'm trying to point out. So when you go to a place like Portugal, you tend to hear, even from some of the Portuguese people, but you tend to hear about the bureaucracy, the dragging of the feet, how long things take, the long lines that you may have to deal with, and the long wait that you may have to deal with certain things. For me, again, I already have this in mind. These are things that I have to expect. And my wife, on the other hand, I have to always ask her, I said, you already, you don't like to wait for things, Or are you going to be able to deal with this type of stuff? Like over here in South Florida, I may call up a cable company and say, hey, listen, I want to change my my cable. I want to change my internet provider or something like that. 2 days, next day, they're there at the house and they're putting the wiring in or doing whatever they have to do. I don't know what it's like in Portugal in regard to that, but just using that for an example. You may go over there and you fill out the paperwork or you do whatever you have to do, and it may be 2 weeks before someone shows up. Can you live with something like that? One of the things that I do understand, and the reason why I'm the way that I am, is because I like to put things into perspective. I do realize that when you talk about Europe, Portugal, and for those who are Portuguese who are listening in right now, just follow me through with this because it's going to sound like I'm sounding negative about the country initially, but you'll see where I'm going with this. Um, it turns out that Portugal happens to be one of the quote unquote poorer countries in Western Europe. Okay? And that word poorer that I'm using is relative, obviously. All right? Because when I was there in Madeira, when I was there in Portugal, I didn't see the street filled with people walking around homeless, and I didn't see poverty all over the place. So again, the word is relative. But in comparison to, say, Germany or France, you know, Portugal is like um, poorer than those countries in the sense of GDP, right? In terms of the average income of the average citizen there. So you have situations like that. Also, Portugal took a beating during the recession, right? So they had to borrow a whole lot of money from the IMF, and we all know that a big chunk of their population had to leave the country to go elsewhere to find work or to find a better income, a better standard of living in terms of money and so forth. So a lot of people had to leave. So when it comes down to those type of things, you go to Portugal, you may not find the conveniences or the how should I put it? Let's just conveniences or the technology in place to expedite things, to make things move faster. So you have to deal with a lot of human beings with pens and papers and the bureaucracies and the moods on a particular day, or I feel lazy today, I don't feel like doing any work, or whatever. And you have to deal with a lot of stuff like that. So one of the things that I always hear about Portugal is the bureaucracy, the wait times, the having to do this, the having to do that, waiting around for this, waiting around for that you may not find in other European countries further north, further to the northeast, like Germany, like maybe the Netherlands, perhaps England and France, and those types of places that may have technologies in place to expedite things or to speed the process up regarding certain things. But I say all of that to say this: the one thing that Portugal has going for it is that it's getting a lot of notice. People are coming in. And if you look at the Lisbon, if you look over Lisbon, from what I remember, you're seeing cranes, you're seeing new buildings going up. What this tells me is that the country, whether people see it or not, it's growing. People are coming in. There are new ideas that are coming in. There are professionals that are coming in with new ideas, entrepreneurs. And I'm sure over time, all of that is going to play out. If Portugal stays stable, it's going to play out. And before you know it, it's going to become, a country to reckon with when it comes to income and so forth over there. But of course, as time goes along and the country begins to grow economically, because of this infusion of tourists, infusion of money that they're bringing, infusion of knowledge that they're bringing to the country, over time, things are going to get more expensive, and that's always how things go. With growth, people might make more in money, but you know how it goes. As you make more, then the prices go up. You make more, prices keep going up. It's always like a carrot and a stick, like always ahead of you, So Portugal, I could see where if the country keeps on the trajectory that it's going on in terms of getting that notice that we're seeing right now, it's like on a lot of people's tongues, Portugal, Portugal, Portugal. As a matter of fact, and I know I'm just rambling and I'm all over the place, and you can pick whatever you want to pick out of this, but something that I found rather interesting, and I know I'm deviating from what I was trying to talk about, whatever that was, but I was pleasantly surprised that I was surprised and wasn't surprised. I was looking at an Ebony magazine, which of course, if you're Portuguese and you may not know about it, it's a magazine that's popular amongst the black community, very popular, and deals with issues amongst or within the black community. And they were talking about 10 places that African Americans go to. When I say African Americans, they're referring to people here in the United States, black people here in the United States. 10 places that they go to. All the places listed were tropical places like Thailand. I don't remember if Jamaica was on the list. Tahiti, just tropical places. The only place in Europe, and the only place that I would say that was on a continent like on the mainland that was listed was actually Portugal. Portugal was on that list, which tells me that the country, it's getting a lot of notice. People are going there. You look at the content online, there's a bunch of content creators, a bunch of YouTubers, even like us, who are talking about the country, who are promoting the country, who are talking about how wonderful it is, who are talking about how safe it is, who are talking about how beautiful it is, who are talking about how great the food tastes there. So the country is getting a lot of notice in that regard. So when I look at things like this, it keeps the excitement within me to want to move over there to Portugal. Now, on the other hand, I saw someone say something the other day, and it makes a lot of sense. If you are moving, if a person wants to move over there, or just about anywhere, but if they want to move over there, are you moving just because the place you're at just sucks, like here in the United States in certain parts, and the way the politics has been over the past few years, which is, if you've listened to some of my other videos, you know I just can't stand the way that it's gone. It's going better depending on who you speak to, and depending on which side of the political aisle you're on. On my side of the aisle, I hear a lot of good things happening. You listen to the other group, you'll think the country is going to hell in a handbasket. But on the ground here, just with the mass shootings, all the craziness that's going on over here sometimes, I'm afraid to just think about what the political climate is going to look like in 2024, all those type of things. When you look on, you sort of realize that, you know what, maybe this might not be the best place for us. At least for me, that's the way it was. I'm a very simple person. I'm not big on materialistic things. I can hack it in things that may not be ideal, so to speak. So again, you may go over to Portugal and you may find out that everything is not like there, like here it is in Florida. I get on the phone, I call somewhere, and before you know it, it's like it's already taken care of. Or I can go online, I can do a million different things. I don't have to leave my home. I don't have to go anywhere and face anyone to do anything, to fill out any paperwork, to do anything for me. Now I may go to Portugal, and then to make it even more interesting, we're not even talking about going to Portugal, the mainland. We're talking about going to an island, which in itself brings its own challenges. You're on an island. You can't say, well, let me drive across the border to Spain, or let me go up to France to get this or do that or whatever. You're on an island. You're going to have to jump on a plane. If it's not there, you're going to have to jump on a plane and go somewhere else to see it. Now, one of the reasons why I decided to do this video was because I just recently saw another video, which I guess I could have put it up over here over my shoulder, but I think the video is titled "Why We Decided to Leave Portugal." That was the second video I saw from that YouTube personality. The first video I saw, they were still relatively new. Her and her husband, I think it is. They were still relatively new to Portugal, and the video was pretty good. But I heard some complaints in between there already. And once I heard the complaints, I was like, I don't know if they're going to make it here, And sure enough, I wasn't surprised when, 10 months later, I saw a video from them, and the video is basically why we're leaving Portugal. Now, interestingly enough, I thought they were going to say they moved back to the United States, only to find out they have decided to move to, please excuse the noise that you're hearing out here. Remember, I'm on the road, okay? So they decided to move to Bangkok, which was really surprising. It's a place I wouldn't really consider, because as much as it's another destination, I'm sure it's beautiful and everything like that, I don't know if I want to move that far away from where I am from, which is the Caribbean, and all the people that I love. That's completely on the other end of the world. At least I am on the side of the United States that faces Portugal. I'm just across the Atlantic Ocean. It's of course they're 4 or 5 hours ahead depending on the time of year, but at least I can make it there within 6 hours. Basically the same, maybe a little bit longer than flying from here to California. So at least there I can jump on a direct flight and be there within the same day. So they moved all the way to Bangkok. So I guess I'm going to be watching their videos to hear what the experience is going to be like over there. But she did mention a few things which I did touch on a little bit earlier. She said when they made that move, because it was during the pandemic, they were, with all the lockdowns and everything, they were in survival mode at that time. You know, they were looking for places that had better health care, that had, you know, safety and so forth. So Portugal, of course, popped up on their radar. But she said something. She said, but after you have addressed the survival mode, and you've settled down and reality starts to kick in. One second there. Car's making a weird noise. You start, it starts to kick in. You start to wonder. You start to wonder about other things. You know, reality kicks in now. Now you're sitting down and you're like, okay. And you know, she started complaining about the variety in foods, which I'm not quite sure what she meant. You know, I really don't know what she meant by variety. Of course, here where I live right now, there's a variety of so many different things that I can eat, which I'm sure you're probably not going to find in Portugal per se. You know, we're from the Caribbean, so obviously we're going to go over there and we might not find foods that are that we're accustomed to over here. So that's going to be somewhat of a challenge. But one thing about Madeira, I see people always growing their gardens, you know, have their gardens out front. So I don't know if we can grow certain things that we use over here, or we look for over here, or we can find here in Florida's climate, you know, which is very similar to what we have in the Caribbean. So I know they were complaining about the variety in foods. She touched on a few other things, but she wasn't too specific about certain things. So these are all things that we have to think about, all things that we have to consider when it comes to making that move over to not just Portugal, but to Madeira, an island, mind you. But then again, I was born on an island. I grew up on an island. I pretty much know what island life is like, and sometimes you feel like you're out there isolated, cut off from certain things, and if you want certain things, you may have to get up, jump on a plane, and go to another place. Like, for example, in the Virgin Islands right now, though we have hospitals there, you know, they're not what you're going to call top tier hospitals. So a lot of people have to leave the Virgin Islands, jump on a flight, and come over here to Florida or Atlanta or Washington, D.C. just to go to a hospital to receive certain types of treatment and care. I'm not saying that's necessarily what you have to do in a place like Madeira, but every now and again you may have to do something like that. So some people may not want to deal with something like that. They want to have that convenience if the hospital is just down the street or whatever. So these are other things that you definitely would have to consider and definitely look into. But I just want to let you guys know, and just to update you guys, that we are still gung-ho on moving over there to Madeira. As long as my wife is still on board, she hasn't gotten, you know, comfortable back here again, or complacent, or feeling, no, she wants to get out of here. She never wanted to come to the United States in the first place, like I mentioned in the previous video. You know, we had a long distance relationship. She lived in Guyana, and she actually wanted to move to Europe before she even thought about moving to the United States. The United States was not in her cards. It was either let me move somewhere else in the Caribbean, or I want to move to Europe. So at least I can always hold her to that. Hey, you remember you said you wanted to go to live in Europe? So, but she's still of the same mindset to get out of here and to move over there. Sure, there are things here we don't like. There are things here we don't care about. That's not the only driving force for us over there. We have a toddler we have to consider. We think about him having to go to school and dealing with shooting drills and so forth, and it's like, why should a 5-year-old have to be dealing with stuff like that, you know? Just a whole lot of other things. Me, on the other hand, I have never really been one to be into thinking the United States is the land of, you know, milk and honey, and think that everything is just perfect and everything is great. I'm not going to knock the country in every way, because there are a lot of things you can do here, a lot of things that you can accomplish. But at this stage of my life, you know, I've been living in the United States since I was 17 years old. I've just seen about it all and been about it all and so forth. And now it's like, I just want to just make my life a little bit more simple. And I'm not saying that Portugal is not complex or it doesn't have its own complexities, but I just want to go somewhere where I can just say, kick up my feet and be like, don't have to worry about my safety per se. Still have to be careful wherever you go, of course, in this world, but you know, have to be looking over my shoulder at every little thing. Here in South Florida right now, I noticed a trend that I didn't think anyone noticed, and all of a sudden a newspaper comes out and mentions it. But there's a bunch of shootings that's been going on the highways. It looks like people are pulling up next to one another and just opening fire. If you look at someone too hard, if there's a little road rage back a little further, you get into something at a club, people are following you, and then it looks like the new thing now is to do the shooting on the highways, you know. So all that stuff I just don't want to deal with. I'm not into all of that. I'm not into violence. I hate that stuff. It bothers me. All the stray bullets flying around the place and everything. It's just crazy. So things like that I just want to just get away from. Sure, I can go ahead and move back to the Caribbean where I came from, but if you're talking about inconveniences, remember, we would like to work from home, or we would like to make sure that, you know, as we're teaching our son, that we have reliable electricity, reliable internet. And in the Virgin Islands right now, we have such a crappy power system that every time you look around, the power is going down. Can't really live in a place like that right now for what we would like to do. I love home. I will always love home. Yes, I would like to live there, but for things like that, those type of things have to improve. Is Portugal perfect? Is Madeira perfect in terms of having everything at our feet and having everything at our fingertips? I haven't lived there. When we went there for the visit, everything was just perfect. But I know, you know, living there and visiting are two entirely different things. But I'm willing to just go ahead and push through, deal with whatever I have to deal with. And when I consider, in my mind, that people may complain maybe about things that's going on there in Portugal, there are many other places in this world where Portugal is like a dream for them. You know, I guess if you come from the United States, you might be spoiled with certain creature comforts. You might be spoiled with certain things, and you go there and it's like, oh my goodness, it took 5 minutes to deliver my pizza, when in the United States it takes 1. You know, things like that. So I'm not going to go for that. I'm not going to fall for those type of things. So I'm just about ready to pick up and get out of here. In the meantime, I've been doing a lot of studying Portuguese history. Of course, that's a whole other subject. You know, sometimes I know some of my peers, they look at me and it's like, do you know what Portugal was? Do you know what Yes, I know. I know about their history. I know about the dark side of their history. But I also know that despite all these type of things, the contributions that they have made, I also do realize that in my own ancestry, for a lot of people here in the Caribbean, whether they know it or not, you know, a lot of us are descendants of crypto Jews who came through Portugal. Of course, they were expelled from there in 1496. But a lot of crypto Jews, this is where they made their names. This is where they lived. And a lot of us are descendants of those people, you know, and they made their contributions and everything. And it's really been a fascinating study, just studying about these people and so forth. So again, that's a whole other subject. But I've been spending a lot of time studying that stuff. I've still been soaking in and watching a lot of videos and learning a lot about Portugal, learning a lot about Madeira, trying to learn as much as I can. And it's something about me. Whenever I'm going somewhere, I like to know about the place. I like to know what the culture is like, what the history is about, the contemporary events, know what I'm going into, know what I'm facing. So I personally, and I'm definitely not leading my wife into it, nor is she going there with this type of like, I don't know anything about this country, but I saw it on a YouTube video, it looks beautiful, and I just want to go live there. No, I'm taking it all in, the history, the contemporary events. Even sometimes every now and again I'm watching the Portuguese news, even though I don't know what they're saying, you know. So I do stuff like that, learn a little bit about what's the capital, the different regions, what's the weather like, what the history is like, you know, just various things that I just love learning about, places that I intend to move to or places I like to visit. All right, so making sure I'm not going in there just with my eyes, you know, wide shut and don't know what's going on, just so someone show a beautiful beach in the Algarve and think, oh my God, this place must be beautiful, and think that's all that it is. Again, visiting or seeing things in video, it's different from going there and living there. So that's where we're at right now. Just want to update you guys, just let you guys know. So let me not hold you up any longer. So until I get around to doing another video at some point in time, which may be sooner than later, it was great talking to you guys again. I pretty much hope you enjoyed this video. I know I rambled all over the place and was saying a whole bunch of different things and so forth, but hopefully you can pick something out of it that you found worthwhile to listen to. Okay, all right, you guys take care, and thank you again for tuning into Mad About Madeira. You can subscribe if you want to share this video. You can go ahead and share it also, but I would love if you can subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, I love when you guys comment. Okay, so please, if you have something to say, just put it down in the comment section. Okay, just be respectful. You might not even agree with me with what I'm saying, but just be respectful. That's all I ask. You guys take care, okay? Until the next time. Thank you.